Good morning. Thank you for having me here. I know I'm between, you're in between me and lunch, so I'll run really quickly about the Arkansas Long-Range Intermodal Transportation Plan. And if you have questions at the end, you can always catch me afterwards. How do I go? Is there We're having a little technical difficulties right here. Just bear with me. Well, I know the reason that you're here, you're in your position, is because not because the fame and fortune. You're here because you're in your position. It's because you have a vision for the community. It's a privilege that we can work all together. Here. Okay. So many of you, as a local official, that you plan for the future, you plan for your community, whether it's budgetary planning, financial planning, or infrastructure planning in your community. So why do we plan? The same reason. We want to know, by 2040, 25 years from now, where we want the transportation system look like in the state. So that's what we plan. And does it really make a difference? As President Eisenhower said, if progress to be steady, we must have long-term guides extending far ahead. Otherwise, we wouldn't be successful. And is planning for the future really predicting the future? Let me tell you a little bit about the difference between preparing versus predicting. Arguably, the greatest mathematician of his day, Lord Kelvin, he said heavier than air flying machines are impossible in 1895. But guess what? 8 years later, the Wright brothers took off at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. 2 years later, in October 2027, Warner released the first talkie, the jazzy singer starring Al Jolson, essentially saved the struggling Warner Brothers studio. And Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM, thinks that maybe there's only a need for 5 computers in the world. That was in 1943. Imagine how many computers are being sold nowadays annually. It's over 300 million. Benjamin Franklin said, by failing to prepare, you're prepared to fail. So long-range planning is really take a look at the past and look forward into the future, because nobody really knows what the future holds, but we got to plan, we got to prepare for ourselves. Here's a slide I want to show you, the accelerating rate of change. It took us about 35 years to adopt a landline telephone, but only 13 years to adopt mobile phones. And what's transportation technology will American adopt? And would there be autonomous vehicles? What about the shared economy? Obviously, some of you probably have used Uber. So what will the future hold? While we can be perfectly prepared, we can look forward, anticipate changes, and perhaps bookend what the future could be, and then be prepared with different strategies. NCHRP has recently released a series of books, reports on scenario planning, and looking at different options, future scenarios in transportation. And so you may gravitate towards one scenario over another, but we are likely to face a combination of elements from a variety of scenarios. So before we start updating our statewide long-range transportation plan, the first thing we did was to go around the state and also conducting visioning workshops, asking everybody what should the goals be, what should we consider as part of the long-range plan. And here is a list of goals that were developed. And Ian earlier mentioned talked about safety, talked about accessibility, also talked about equity, equality. So some of those goals Ian mentioned also are wrapped into this set of goals. Safety, security, infrastructure conditions, such as, do you want to see the potholes in the pavement or the bridges are in poor condition? What about reliability and congestions that we're facing? How predictable it is for you to travel from your home to work or any destination that you choose? And what about environment? What about economic development? What about multimodal transportation system? Are we utilizing all modes efficiently? We also conduct multiple public meetings, stakeholders meetings, and from that, we got some feedback from the stakeholders. And generally, stakeholders are telling us they support the goals, and 84% comfortable with presented goals. And maintaining current transportation system assets are top priority. And also increasing bicycle pedestrian options, making safety improvements such as adding shoulders or improved signing, striping, and also expanding highways by adding lanes and constructing new routes. When we start to look at the needs based on the feedback from stakeholders, we looked at travel trends. I know Ian earlier showed a travel trend for the United States, and this is one. Arkansas is the red line, and the national trends is shown in blue line. Back in February, US DOT had a press release. It said the US driving reached 3.148 trillion miles by the end of 2015, beating the previous record of 3.003 trillion miles in 2007. For a sense of scale, 3.148 trillion miles is roughly the same distance as 337 round trips from Earth to Pluto. So obviously we have seen a downturn back during the Great Depression. Obviously the traffic has increased in the last couple years. Even though we are hearing millennials are driving less, they are moving to the urban centers. But the population continues to grow, and there's still a need for automobiles. We also looked at population trends in Arkansas. Here's from 1980s all the way to the current data that's available. We're seeing a steady growth, and we're expecting to have about 3.4 million population by 2040. We also look at employment and income. Arkansas median household income grew 24.6% from 2020 to 2012 as compared to 22.3% nationwide. So we have a pretty healthy growth. And also look at Arkansas' journey to work. And we're seeing about 10% commuters carpooled, and then about 84% they drive alone. The mean travel time to work from those that drive alone was 21.4 minutes. Also, look at freight. Freight is a major component of our economy. 43% of our total economic output in Arkansas is freight dependent. So next thing we were looking at is, okay, what kind of revenue are we expecting from, at Highway Department? So so that helps us to determine where to guide the transportation investment. And the 25-year total revenue we're expecting after adjusted for inflation is about $11 billion in 2014 dollars. And let me tell you a little bit about the needs that we assessed. In 25 years, our total highway needs by type is shown here in this pie chart, and the total needs is at about $53.7 billion. Also, we looked at non-highway type of needs, including biped, transit, both in rural and in urban area, also freight rail, ports, waterways, other modes. And that's about $9.2 billion for the next 25 years. So from comparing the revenue and the needs, we're looking at just highway funding gap is about $42.7 billion in the next 25 years. So obviously funding is not going to be sufficient to support everything everyone wants to do. So we're going to have to prioritize. One of the things we did was looking at alternative future scenarios. 4 scenarios that were developed. One is looking at, because what we heard from the stakeholders, we got to keep up with our current infrastructure. We got to keep the condition in good condition, so you're not hitting the potholes, the bridges are in good condition, we can support the economy. So the first scenario is keeping it smooth, preserve the reinvestment, simply doing just that, keeping our existing infrastructure in a good condition. Again, many of you probably are aware that MAP 21 and FAST Act both are the transportation legislation at the federal level. They emphasize on performance-based planning and investment. Next scenario is about focusing on freight. Think locally and trade globally. How can we enhance infrastructure investment that support industry retention and attraction? Allocating funding to increase capacities to relieve those freight bottlenecks and increase connectivity. And the third scenario is on connecting communities, forging opportunities. We have communities in various parts of the state. How can we make them better connected? The last scenario is bigger cities and more mobilities. One of the things when we were going through the demographic information, through the analysis, we noticed that some of the rural counties have population decrease, and whereas some of the more urban counties having population increase. So if we accelerate that change, what will we look at in the future? Is it do we see bigger cities and the demand for multimodal transportation is going to be heightened? So that is another scenario that we analyzed. So now we need your help. Those are some of the things that we presented. One is, we have goals and objectives. We have the needs. And then we also looked at the different scenarios. So now, when you go back, and please go to our website, take a look at the information that's available. We're getting ready to launch an online engagement tool that's called MetroQuest, and where you can pick your favorites, basically. There's a menu of options. You can pick what goals that you feel like it's more of a priority for you, and what are the scenarios, which scenario that you like the most. And also we have a dashboard, a performance dashboard. If you have extra money, where do you want to invest in different areas? How will that affect the performance in those different areas as well? So next, also we're going to be starting the next round of stakeholders meetings, will be later in this month, and I hope you get to spread the word and also come participate in those meetings. And here's a screenshot of the MetroQuest, which will be available probably in the next week or so. So next step is, after we finish the meetings, we'll draft the long-range plan, and then we'll present that to the Planning Advisory Group, which consists of multiple agencies' representatives. And also we're going to send this, make this document available for public comments, and we hope to get a lot of comments from you all. And then we're going to present this plan to the Commission for adoption, and hopefully the Commission accepts the long-range plan using the policies and strategies identified in the long-range plan to guide the future implementation of transportation investments. How am I on time? So please stay engaged, go to our website, and we also have some, we brought some flyers with us that shows the public meetings. Next round of stakeholders meetings will be at the location near you. Please come by. We're going to we have some in the front, and then we're going to also keep those at our booth at the exhibit hall. That's pretty much about the long-range plan. One other thing I want to mention is the Highway Department is working with the Geographic Information Office to develop a all-public road linear references system. What that means is the 911 system and the linear reference system will be one system that may affect in your area, but the AGIO office have been working closely with the counties and some of your cities as well to develop in this. This is a requirement by federal highways, and once this system is all developed, I think you're going to find very helpful for your planning in your community as well. And with that, how do I do on time? And I know it's lunchtime, so I appreciate you having me here. And if you have any questions, I'll be here for a few more minutes. Or you can email me at just jessie.jones@ahd.ar.gov. Thank you very much.